And I want to introduce him in a nice short way, but you have so much stuff, and I should not deny him of all of those accolades.
All right.
I mean, he's worked hard for those.
He has worked very hard for them. Well, it is our pleasure to welcome in studios the the former Prime Minister of St. Lucia from 2016 to 2021. He is also the present leader of the opposition.
Yep.
And also the present political leader of the United Workers' Party. He is a former Minister of Tourism, and also, whilst he was Prime Minister, he was also a former Minister of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, and Public Service. In private life, he was what the media have referred to as the outspoken former Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Air Jamaica, and owner of Coco Palm in St. Lucia. It is our pleasure to welcome with us. I don't know if you carry the title honorable, but with that bio, you're going to be Honorable Alan Chastanet as far as Straight Talk.
He is honorable. He is honorable.
Mr. Chastanet, welcome to Straight Talk. It's a pleasure to have you as our guest in studios.
Great to be here. I heard I'm in bad company, so I'm going to try to behave myself.
Well, just for clarity, I was going to introduce you as, just former Prime Minister, now leader of the opposition, the Honorable Alan Chastanet, and of course, most importantly, a person that I have discovered over the last couple of days to be a very big fan of the Cayman Islands and the Caymanian people.
Yeah, look, your model of development, particularly after, Ivan?
After Hurricane Ivan, yeah.
Is really just remarkable. And I think that the model that you have, which is your financial services, your secondary home market, your tourism, your cruise tourism, and what you've done here is amazing, right? And you've got an incredible brand. And, look, you have some challenging days ahead. And I'm here because I want to make sure, not make sure, I want to, we benefit from Cayman's success.
All right.
And I think that we in St. Lucia adopted a theme called Coexist with COVID.
Okay.
Right. So even though COVID had to shut us down, the world down, didn't mean that we had to be closed for business.
Right.
And we established protocols. And I think that, Cayman is where you are today, that you have to learn how to coexist with your success.
Indeed.
So two things.
Right, well said.
Two things so that I don't lose you. I need you to always keep pointing right down the middle of this barrel here so I don't get any dips. But I want you to continue in that vein. And I think it's important because, again, I guess maybe it's just a general thing of human beings, but I know the Caymanian people, and I think it's really important to really hear how you view Cayman. I know my wife, first thing she's going to say to people, what did you think when you landed here? What were your thoughts? And going in that same vein, you talked about the fact that, if you don't mind me sharing a little bit of information, that you even utilize some of the services here. I think you said Health City with a family member or something.
Yeah, so I got to meet Health City for the first time when I came here as Prime Minister. I was actually on my way to Turks and Caicos after the hurricane there. And we passed through here and met with some of the members of your cabinet, and we also met with Cayman Health City because we were looking to bring Cayman Health City to St. Lucia. And I wanted to understand what had gone through here. And I was reminded again what an incredible model you had.
Right.
And Cayman Health City obviously was controversial, and I was told the stories when it first came here. But after a while, people started seeing the benefit. And so when persons now were coming here to buy real estate, which is a big industry, once they went to Cayman Health City, the decision became much easier.
Yeah.
And so the quality of your services becomes beneficial. So kudos to Cayman finding a way to get over that hurdle and to embrace it.
Right.
The other one was DART.
Right.
When DART first came here, people didn't believe that the real estate value could go any further. And DART, now we look back, has proven them wrong.
Yeah.
If you build better infrastructure, the demand for quality products is there, and the prices have gone up. Now the question is, how do you find a balance between what's happened to Cayman real estate and the average Caymanian? So I want to say to you that what really endeared me to Cayman is to be able to measure success. And I realized that for small island developing states, potential is going to be defined by how you use your land, because land is the product that we can't produce anymore. We can get more money, we can create more jobs.
One of my colleagues' favorite statements.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
making any more.
Right.
Yeah, God's not making any more of that.
Right. So the point is that when you look at the GDP of Cayman
Mm-hmm.
and divide it by the amount of square miles you have, it comes out to about $80 million of output per square mile.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's put that in perspective. St. Lucia is 9 million.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Aruba is 40 million.
Mm-hmm.
Barbados is 30 million. Nassau, not Bahamas,
Mhm.
Nassau is 150 million.
Mhm.
And Singapore, which is the same physical size as St. Lucia, 240 square miles, is 1.5 billion.
Right.
So when you compare Cayman to a lot of the other countries in this region, you're at the high end.
Way
But
ahead.
you're still got room to go.
Yes.
Now, why is it important to do that? Because it allows you to measure. And it tells you that if you want to be able to have more economic activity in the same physical space you have, it requires some very difficult decisions
Mhm.
in order to make sure that everybody can coexist.
Right.
The moment you start having growth that is not properly balanced, it becomes a problem.
Yes.
You know, so if we have beautiful hotels, but the rest of the destination isn't beautiful
Mhm.
and it's a ghetto,
Mm-hmm.
and I know some destinations like that,
Yeah.
then crime goes up, and eventually the crime will outperform or outweigh the benefits of the good things you do.
Absolutely.
And so persons want to come to authentic, integrated tourism products. And probably Europe is the greatest example of that. And I call it village tourism.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, you go to Capri and you go to Florence and you go to these places because it's not all inclusive
Mm-hmm.
and you're being part of the product. You feel Italian right away.
Right.
And yet there are significant numbers
Mm-hmm.
that have grown there, and they're finding ways to overcome some of those challenges. And I think that, you know, look, you're going through some growing pains here because of your success.
Mm.
And I felt coming here now to give an unemotional side to the story of a tough decision that Caymanians are going to have to make. I didn't come here to convince Caymanians or to participate in your politics.
Right.
I respect you all way too much, but I certainly wanted to be able to give an unemotional, pragmatic opinion of an alternative way of thinking of this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that will benefit some people in helping them to come to a final decision.
Well, one of the interesting things you just said was the fact that, you know, you've seen Cayman kind of go through some of these difficult spots before, whether it would have been Health City, whether it would have been the Cayman Bay, and we're kind of one in those tough spots now.
Mm-hmm.
You think Cayman's going to make it?
Of course, once the emotional part of it settles down, because, you know, really, in the scheme of things, this
Mhm.
is not really a big decision.
Right.
What people are doing is deliberately attaching more to this decision than really exists. This is a simple decision. You already have cruise tourism. There's a possibility that your cruise tourism can diminish quite significantly, even to the point that it could leave, right? And so the question is, do you continue tendering people or do you build a berth?
Mm-hmm.
But all of the other questions as to how many cruise ship passengers you're going to have, how are we going to manage this business, exist whether you're doing tendering or if you have a berth. Now, some people will say to you that the industry is changing. And I thought your deputy premier gave a great example. Financial services changes.
Yeah.
AML requirements, how people see money moving, okay? The requirement to have residence and actually what we call an economic output to have a financial services. So you have to adapt.
And just to your point, not sorry to interrupt you, but we just made some very major changes that my colleague and I have been chatting about here, even on in relation to our secrets, our confidentiality. And the public didn't really give much input on that one, to be
Right.
quite honest. But yeah, go ahead.
So the fact is that the cruise industry itself is changing. So in the early days of the cruise industry, what they're doing today didn't exist.
Mhm.
The first set of cruise lines were for transatlantic. And so people were staying on the ship longer, and it was designed very differently. All of a sudden now, rolling those cabins over and to broaden the scope of the market, because in 1990, the cruise industry had about 1.5% of the global market share. Today, they have around 8% of the global market share. And to have accomplished that, they had to change. And these new ships that are coming in are designed very differently. They're designed because of fuel consumption. They're designed in terms of providing better services than the older ships were. And also now they're getting a very different type of clientele, because the bigger ships have a bigger mix of clientele. So you have the smaller cabins, mass market, and you have the suites. No different than destinations.
Mhm.
Destinations have some very high-end hotels, and you have guest houses, you have Airbnb, and you have a mix as well here. The same thing is happening on the cruise lines. But because the ships have gotten bigger, to have them berth and come to your destination requires something very different. Let me give you an example that Caymanians you
Sure.
can relate to. British Airways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Caymanians complained for years that British Airways was not providing a nonstop service to England.
Mhm.
Was it that they ran out of fuel? That was the
No.
problem?
No, it's the case they can't take off with full.
They couldn't take off, right? And so you had to go through a long period to determine whether it was the right thing for Cayman, whether it's environmentally correct, etc.,
Oh, no.
to be able to extend the runway. And also including that was the turnaround. Okay, people may not remember that the engineer on the flight used to have the door open, right, when they were turning the plane to make sure the wheel didn't go into the ground. Now, all of those are what we call disruptions to your normal flight pattern and create additional cost and inconvenience. If Cayman wanted to get a nonstop, it had to modernize. And I think that there's going to be another step where jetways, you know, I hear this argument all the time. I used to work at Air Jamaica. So
Yeah.
the tourists want to feel the heat when they come off of the plane,
Mhm.
right? So you've just been 8 hours on a flight or whatever, came from a cold destination, you got your coat, you're carrying a baby, whatever. You really believe that that's the moment when people want to feel heat? People want to get off the plane as conveniently as possible, get out of the airport as fast as possible, get into their room, put their swimsuit on so they can really enjoy the heat.
And then go and get the
So
heat.
let's not try to add romance to a function. Okay? And I think that in many ways that Caymanians are going to have do what they've done in the past, is to understand these issues, take out the emotional side of it, and ask a practical question. So what I have found in my years, and I've been involved in tourism from 1990, right? I go back to when we had SARS was my first experience.
Mhm.
They had the Gulf War,
Mhm.
right, that we went through. I went through 9